It was a crisp autumn evening when Ethan decided to embark on his solo hiking trip through the Appalachian Mountains. The trail, renowned for its breathtaking views and serene landscapes, promised a much-needed escape from the stress of city life. Ethan had always been an avid hiker, and this trip was supposed to be a rejuvenating adventure. Little did he know, it would become the most terrifying experience of his life. Ethan started his hike at dawn, the golden rays of the sun casting a warm glow on the vibrant fall foliage. The trail was challenging but rewarding, and he made good progress throughout the day. As the sun began to set, he found a secluded spot to set up camp for the night. He built a small fire, cooked a simple meal, and settled into his sleeping bag, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Around midnight, Ethan was awakened by the sound of rustling leaves. He assumed it was a small animal and tried to ignore it, but the noise persisted. Groggy and a bit annoyed, he grabbed his flashlight and stepped out of his tent to investigate. The forest was eerily silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves. He scanned the area with his flashlight but saw nothing unusual. Just as he was about to return to his tent, he caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, barely visible in the dim light. Ethan's heart raced as he focused his flashlight on the figure. It was a man, dressed in tattered clothes with a gaunt, hollow-eyed face. The man stood motionless, staring at Ethan with an unnerving intensity. "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan called out, his voice trembling slightly. The man didn't respond. He just stood there, staring. Ethan's unease grew, and he decided to approach the stranger cautiously. As he moved closer, the man suddenly turned and disappeared into the darkness of the forest. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to follow or retreat to the safety of his tent. Curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to follow the mysterious figure. He walked cautiously through the forest, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The rustling leaves and snapping twigs beneath his feet were the only sounds that accompanied him. After a few minutes, he came to a small clearing where the man stood, his back turned to Ethan. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice firmer this time. The man slowly turned to face him. His eyes were hollow and vacant, as if he were staring into an abyss. "You shouldn't be here," the man whispered, his voice barely audible. A chill ran down Ethan's spine. "What do you mean?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "This place, it's cursed," the man replied. "Those who wander here never leave." Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. "What are you talking about?" The man took a step closer, his hollow eyes locking onto Ethan's. "Leave now while you still can," he said, his voice filled with an eerie urgency. Before Ethan could respond, the man turned and vanished into the forest once more. Ethan stood there, frozen in place, his mind racing. The encounter had left him deeply unsettled. He decided to heed the man's warning and return to his camp. As he made his way back, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The forest, once a place of tranquility, now felt ominous and oppressive. He quickened his pace, desperate to reach the safety of his tent. When he finally arrived at his campsite, he found it in disarray. His tent was torn, his belongings scattered, and the fire had been extinguished. Panic set in as he realized he was not alone. The man's warning echoed in his mind, and he felt a deep sense of dread. Ethan decided to pack up and leave immediately. He hastily gathered his belongings and set off down the trail, his flashlight flickering as he moved. The forest seemed to close in around him, the shadows growing darker and more menacing. As he hurried along the trail, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned, but no one was there. The footsteps grew louder, closer, and more frantic. Ethan broke into a run, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The footsteps matched his pace, as if an unseen entity were chasing him. In his panic, Ethan tripped over a root and fell to the ground. His flashlight rolled away, plunging him into darkness. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes wide with fear. The footsteps had stopped, but he could feel a presence looming over him. Desperate and terrified, Ethan stumbled forward, the darkness pressing in on all sides. He could see the faint outline of the trail ahead, but it seemed to stretch endlessly. The presence grew stronger, an overwhelming sense of malevolence surrounding him. Finally, as dawn broke, Ethan burst out of the forest and into an open field. The sunlight was a welcome relief, and he collapsed to the ground, exhausted and shaken. He looked back at the forest, its trees casting long shadows across the field. The presence was gone, but the memory of that night would haunt him forever. Ethan never returned to the Appalachian Mountains. He couldn't forget the hollow-eyed man and the terror he had experienced. To this day, he warns others to stay away from Blackwood Manor and the cursed forest that surrounds it. For some places are better left unexplored, and some warnings are best heeded. Years passed, and Ethan did his best to forget the terrifying encounter in the Appalachian Mountains. He moved to a new city, started a new job, and built a new life, but the memory of that night never fully faded. Every now and then, he would catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure out of the corner of his eye or hear the faint echo of footsteps behind him, and the old fear would resurface. One rainy evening, as Ethan was walking home from work, he noticed a flyer on a lamppost. It advertised a lecture on paranormal phenomena, hosted by a renowned investigator named Dr. Emily Harper. The topic: the cursed forests of North America. Intrigued and hoping for some closure, Ethan decided to attend. The lecture hall was packed with people. Dr. Harper, a woman in her mid-40s with an air of quiet authority, began by discussing various haunted forests and the legends surrounding them. As she spoke, Ethan felt a chill when she mentioned Blackwood Manor and the Appalachian Trail. She detailed numerous reports of mysterious disappearances and sightings of a hollow-eyed figure warning travelers to leave. These forests, Dr. Harper said, are believed to be connected by a network of ancient, malevolent energy. Those who encounter this energy often experience extreme terror, and some never return. But there is hope. We believe that these curses can be broken. After the lecture, Ethan approached Dr. Harper and shared his story. She listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each detail. When he finished, she invited him to her office to discuss it further. "I've been researching the Blackwood Manor curse for years," Dr. Harper said as they sat down. "Your experience confirms much of what I've uncovered. The man you saw is known as the Watcher, a guardian of sorts, bound to the forest and the manor. He warns people away, but he's also trapped by the same curse." Ethan felt a mixture of fear and curiosity. "Is there a way to break the curse?" Dr. Harper nodded. "There might be. According to my research, the curse was placed by an ancient cult that practiced dark rituals in Blackwood Manor. To break it, we need to find and destroy the artifact that anchors the curse." Ethan agreed to help, driven by a need to finally put the past to rest. They gathered a small team of experienced paranormal investigators and prepared for the journey back to the Appalachian Mountains. The team set out on a cold, clear night, equipped with advanced ghost hunting technology and protective charms. They reached Blackwood Manor by dawn, the imposing structure even more foreboding than Ethan remembered. The air was thick with tension as they entered the mansion and began their search. They found the secret passage behind the fallen portrait and ventured into the dark, winding corridor. The chamber with the mirror lay ahead, but this time they were prepared. Dr. Harper led them in a protective chant as they approached the mirror. The shadowy figure emerged again, but it seemed weaker, its form flickering. "We know your secret," Dr. Harper said, her voice steady. "Show us the artifact." The figure hesitated, then pointed to a hidden compartment beneath the mirror. Inside was a small, intricately carved box. Dr. Harper carefully opened it, revealing a black, pulsating crystal, the same kind Ethan had seen before. "This is it," she said. "We need to destroy it." As they prepared to shatter the crystal, the shadowy figure surged forward, its form growing more menacing. The air grew cold, and the walls seemed to close in. The team fought to hold their ground, their protective charms glowing brightly. Ethan took the hammer and chisel from his pack. As he raised the hammer, the figure lunged at him, its skeletal fingers reaching out. He struck the crystal with all his might, a deafening crack echoing through the chamber. The crystal shattered, releasing a blinding light that filled the room. The figure let out a final, anguished scream before dissolving into nothingness. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the mansion fell silent. The curse had been broken. Exhausted but relieved, the team left Blackwood Manor as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon. Ethan felt a profound sense of peace, knowing he had faced his fear and helped to free the trapped souls. In the months that followed, news of their success spread. The forest began to heal, and Blackwood Manor was finally left to crumble into obscurity. Ethan and Dr. Harper became close friends, their bond strengthened by the shared experience. They continued to explore the paranormal, uncovering mysteries and protecting the living from the remnants of the past. Though Ethan still saw shadows at the edge of his vision from time to time, they no longer filled him with fear. He knew now that he had the strength to face whatever came his way, armed with knowledge, courage, and the support of those who understood the darkness. Years had passed since Ethan and Dr. Harper had broken the curse of Blackwood Manor. The experience had left them both with a deep bond and a renewed dedication to their work. They continued their investigations into the paranormal, driven by the belief that there were more curses and dark energies out there that needed to be confronted. One evening, as Ethan was sifting through old documents in his study, he came across a letter that seemed out of place. The paper was yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant but hurried. It was addressed to him, but there was no return address or postmark. Dear Ethan, you don't know me, but I know of your courage and your work. My name is Isabel, and I am the last living descendant of the founders of Blackwood Manor. There is more to the curse than you and Dr. Harper have uncovered. The watcher you encountered is just one of many guardians scattered across the country, protecting something far more sinister. ***. I implore you to come to my family's estate in New Orleans. There are secrets here that need to be revealed, and I fear time is running out. The curse has a deeper root, and if it is not fully eradicated, it will only grow stronger. ***. Yours sincerely, Isabel Blackwood. Ethan's heart raced as he read the letter. The notion that the curse was not fully lifted, and that there were other guardians and secrets to uncover, was both terrifying and exhilarating. He immediately called Dr. Harper and read the letter to her. We need to go, Ethan, she said without hesitation. This could be the key to understanding the full extent of the curse and how to finally put an end to it. They quickly gathered their equipment and set off for New Orleans. Isabel's estate was a grand, old mansion in the heart of the city, steeped in history and mystery. When they arrived, they were greeted by a frail but determined woman in her 60s, with striking features and an air of urgency. Thank you for coming, Isabel said, her voice trembling slightly. I've spent my life trying to understand and contain the darkness my ancestors unleashed. But I've discovered something horrifying. The curse is tied to a network of ancient artifacts scattered across the country, each guarded by a watcher like the one you encountered. She led them into the mansion's library, where a large map of the United States was spread out on a table. Red pins marked various locations across the country. These are the sites where the artifacts are hidden, Isabel explained. We must find and destroy them all to break the curse completely. Ethan and Dr. Harper studied the map, their determination growing. We'll need to split up, Dr. Harper said. There are too many sites for us to cover together in a reasonable time. They formed a plan to tackle the sites in pairs, bringing in trusted colleagues to assist them. Ethan and Isabel would start with a site in the swamps of Louisiana, while Dr. Harper and another investigator, James, would head to an abandoned mining town in Colorado. Ethan and Isabel arrived at their destination, a dilapidated plantation house deep in the bayou. The air was thick with humidity and the scent of decay. As they approached the house, the feeling of being watched returned, stronger than ever. Inside, the house was a maze of rotting wood and cobwebs. They navigated the creaking floorboards and dark corridors, following Isabel's intuition and the clues she had gathered over the years. They finally reached a hidden chamber beneath the house, where a pedestal held an ancient, glowing amulet. The artifact, Isabel whispered. This is it. As Ethan reached for the amulet, a shadowy figure materialized, identical to the watcher they had faced before but more menacing. The guardian's hollow eyes bore into them, and it spoke in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You dare to disturb the sacred relics? You will not leave this place alive." Ethan and Isabel braced themselves as the guardian lunged. The battle was fierce, but they fought with determination, using the protective charms and knowledge they had accumulated. The guardian was powerful, but the combined strength of Ethan and Isabel proved stronger. With a final, desperate push, they managed to shatter the amulet, releasing a blinding light. The guardian let out a terrible scream before dissolving into nothingness. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a serene silence. As they caught their breath, Ethan felt a sense of déjà vu, knowing that Dr. Harper and James were likely facing similar trials. They returned to New Orleans, their mission far from over but with a renewed sense of purpose. In the weeks that followed, Ethan and Dr. Harper, along with their team, traveled from site to site, facing the Guardians and destroying the artifacts. Each victory brought them closer to their goal, but the challenges grew more intense. The Guardians seemed to grow more desperate, their attacks more vicious. Finally, the map led them to the last site, a forgotten temple in the deserts of Arizona. This final Guardian was the most powerful of all, the embodiment of the curse itself. The battle was the fiercest they had ever faced, testing their limits and pushing them to the brink. But united by their bond and driven by their determination to end the curse once and for all, they succeeded. The final artifact was destroyed, and the last Guardian was vanquished. The oppressive shadow that had loomed over their lives lifted, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt truly free. He and Dr. Harper returned to their normal lives, forever changed by their experiences but with a sense of peace and accomplishment. The story of their journey became a legend, a tale of courage and determination in the face of unimaginable darkness. And while the shadows of the past might still linger, they knew that they had the strength and the knowledge to face whatever came their way. The curse that had once gripped the land was now a distant memory, but Ethan and Dr. Harper found that their experiences had changed them in profound ways. They continued their work, but now they focused on using their knowledge to help others who faced supernatural threats. The world was full of mysteries, and they felt a deep sense of responsibility to protect the living from the darkness that still lingered in the shadows. One crisp winter evening, as they were wrapping up a particularly grueling case involving a haunted lighthouse, Ethan received an encrypted email from an unknown sender. The message contained a single line: "The darkness has returned. Meet me in the abandoned asylum." Curiosity and a sense of duty compelled Ethan to call Dr. Harper. They agreed to investigate the message and headed to the address provided. The asylum was located on the outskirts of a desolate town, its crumbling walls and broken windows casting a foreboding silhouette against the winter sky. When they arrived, the asylum was cloaked in an eerie silence. The front door creaked open with a gentle push, and they stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was cold and heavy, filled with the scent of mildew and decay. As they explored the asylum, they found signs of recent activity, footprints in the dust and strange markings on the walls. The further they ventured, the more they felt an oppressive presence, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. They finally reached the asylum's central hall, where a figure stood in the shadows. The figure was cloaked in a dark robe, its face hidden beneath a hood. "You received my message," the figure said in a voice that sent chills down their spines. "Who are you?" Dr. Harper demanded, her voice steady despite her unease. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a face Ethan and Dr. Harper recognized from old records. It was a man named Elias Blackwood, a name associated with the darkest aspects of the curse they had once battled. "I am Elias Blackwood, the last of the cultists who began the darkness you fought," Elias continued. "You thought you had ended the curse, but you only severed a part of its network. The true power of the curse lies in a hidden realm, a dimension that connects all the artifacts you destroyed. I have been working to bring it back into this world." Ethan and Dr. Harper exchanged worried glances. They had faced many horrors, But this revelation was new and terrifying. "How can we stop you?" Ethan asked, trying to mask his fear with determination. Elias smiled darkly. "The only way to stop the curse from reawakening is to enter the hidden realm and destroy the source of its power. But be warned. It is a place of pure malevolence, where your deepest fears and regrets will be brought to life." Without waiting for their response, Elias chanted an incantation, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. A swirling vortex opened in the center of the hall, its dark, swirling depths beckoning them into the unknown. Ethan and Dr. Harper, knowing they had no choice, stepped into the vortex. They were immediately engulfed in darkness, their surroundings shifting and warping. When the darkness finally receded, they found themselves in a nightmarish landscape, a realm of twisted shapes, shifting shadows, and a palpable sense of dread. The air was thick with whispers and cries, the ground beneath them shifting like quicksand. Strange, distorted figures lurked in the shadows, their faces contorted with anguish and anger. Ethan and Dr. Harper pressed forward, guided by a faint, pulsing light in the distance. As they approached the source of the light, they saw a massive, blackened obelisk at the center of a dark, swirling storm.